Manager. Today I am interviewing Scott Davis live in the field, and today we're going to talk about why conserving plants like milkweed is important for Florida's ecosystems and, to continue to conserve everything that we love about Florida. So I'll introduce myself. Like I said, I'm Carson. I'm your communications manager. My job is to make sure that conservation voters are connected with the causes that you care about, being clean land, clean water, climate action, and democracy for all. Scott, it's so great to have you here. Looks like we lost Scott. Let me send him a quick message. So just while we wait for Scott, a little bit about what FCV does. So a major pillar of ours is conserving land. And this is not just land for land's sake, which of course we believe in preserving habitat for the betterment of our species, such as native plants and native animals, but also because of the many attributes that conserved land brings to humans. So by conserving land, we protect our water. When we protect wetlands, we allow natural systems to function in ways that filter our water and store our water. And really, conserving land is an investment in our future, and it's an investment in the state that we love. So, many of us grew up, I for one, grew up in my state parks, grew up going outdoors, and, that was such a privilege. So preserving those places and what makes them unique is so important for our cause. I think we have Scott back. Here we go. Great to have you back, Scott. I don't believe we can hear you. Folks in the chat. Oh, here we go. Okay, great.
Okay, great.
So Scott, tell us a little bit about where you are and what you do.
Okay, I am on a little side easement road adjacent to US 319 right now. And what I'm doing is I'm mapping out a number of plants that will be removed tomorrow as a part of a joint effort with lots of organizations to rescue many plants, including notably species like this right here. So this is butterfly milkweed, Asclepias tuberosa. And so this is a very important native milkweed and wildflower found here in the state of Florida. And the majority of these populations are found along the sides of roads or the edges of fire suppressed forests. And as a result of that, they're very vulnerable to a lot of uncertainty related to road widening, construction, development, and fire suppression. Over here, a little bit farther, here we go. Here is a population of clasping milkweed. So this is Asclepias amplexicalis. All of these right here. This is actually one of the higher density clusters I've ever seen anywhere in the wild. There are even some here growing on verticals right here on the side of the road. And then right in the middle of it is a Carolina wren's nest. By looking there, I may luck out and try to see the nest, but maybe not. But the parents keep coming in and out, feeding the young insects. So it's a lively day here on this dirt road.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
I have a question. So milkweed
sure.
are the larvae plant for monarch butterflies, but they benefit a lot of different kinds of species. Is that correct?
They benefit a lot of what? Say that one more time.
A lot of different species, not just monarchs. Like they have an important role in an ecosystem.
Yes. Yeah, so milkweeds are a major source of nectar and pollinarium for a lot of pollinators, and a lot of the insect diversity that's associated with milkweeds is usually not given the attention that's due to it because so much of an emphasis is put on milkweeds because monarch butterflies depend upon them. Monarch
Mhm.
butterflies have declined by over 90% in the last 20 years. And so there's a big push to conserve milkweeds for monarchs, but many other insects, as well as birds and other animals that feed on those insects, depend on these milkweeds as well.
And would you say that not just milkweed is declining in population, but how are, in general, how is the state of Florida's native plants? Is there a lot of decline
The
across the
vast
board?
majority of Florida's native plant the vast majority of Florida's native plants are in a state of decline. The trend is down for many of our species. Most of our endangered and threatened species are continuing to decline. And development, obviously, is a big reason for the decline, but other factors not related to development that are also pushing those downward trends. And so on public land, many rare species are are rather uncommon or have declined even there over the years because of incompatible fire management. And so research has been done across the state, and it has demonstrated that fire returned to a lot of the landscape, especially here, northern half of the state, every 2 years. And so if you don't burn every 2 years, then a lot of those rare special plants begin to disappear. And so, as a result of that, the only places that support a lot of rare species, including milkweeds, are roadsides and power line easements because they are the only places that are mowed in a or disturbed at a frequency that parallels the frequency that fire would have disturbed the landscape.
That's interesting. And you mentioned roads. What impact do roads have on those populations that grow on the side of them?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
So Scott, you lead a really cool project, rescuing plants from roadsides. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So, rare species of plants, threatened species, endangered species that are listed at the state level, as well as many other species that are rare but not listed, like milkweeds, they have no real protection on the side of the road. And so Florida statutes allow for listed endangered and threatened species of plants on the side of the road to be taken if a road project needs to occur. So, for example, this is crabapple. So, this is Malus angustifolia. It is a threatened species that's sharply declining in the state. And this plant, if we don't remove it, it will be lost. And with the majority of these plants occurring on roadsides and not in the woods, we're dealing with a threatened species that if we don't remove them and establish them other places, it's going into becoming an endangered species instead of just a threatened species. And so what we're doing out here is removing approximately 6 miles worth of plant material for over 100 species of plant. And using methods that we have developed over the years from numerous plant rescues, we figured out how to do this with a high success rate so that we can go out here and remove many of these uncommon species and then move them somewhere else where they can potentially be established and keep that genetic material on the landscape.
Very cool. So what are some other species you're seeing out here on the road today?
sure this is working. So out here on the road today, we are looking at red ring milkweed. We're looking at butterfly milkweed. We're looking at sandhill milkweed. We're looking at zigzag silkgrass aster, many different wildflowers, many different rare shrubs, lots of grasses, many plants that they are only on the side of the road. They're not in the
Mhm.
surrounding landscape. And so we have a high diversity of many plants. We've removed approximately 2,000 plants since last weekend. So it's been a huge endeavor, a huge success. And we have one more work day tomorrow where I know that people from Pensacola, Orlando, Gainesville, and even if you from South Florida are coming up to come out and help with this endeavor to get these plants out of here just before the bulldozers arrive. And so it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of camaraderie. Folks are networking, they're meeting each other, and they're learning about these rules and regulations in the state that rather fall short of what is required to save these species from
Mhm.
disappearing. And they're also learning about what we can do to work with agencies, state government, or federal government to prevent big losses from happening in the future.
Yeah, I attended Monday's plant rescue with two of my friends, and we had a great time. We were in the easy group with the rescuing Coreopsis, and it was just so getting your shovel out there and putting actions to words is really a cool experience. And I will add, like being like relatively far away from each other and with our masks on, I think it was a great way to safely connect with other conservation voters um, outside. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for taking me out there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So I think that. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was going to say, Scott, it sounds like so often when we talk about road projects, it's as if it's it's better to expand on a current road than to build fresh new roads. But expanding on current roads also has really big impacts as well.
Yes. So expanding on existing roads, if you were to go back in time to the middle of the 20th century, you would see that these rare plants that are along the side of the road would have been found evenly across the landscape. And then as time went on and fire suppression and development expanded,
Mm.
those distributions contracted to the point that now these plants are found in these little linear distributions along the side of the road. And so when monarch butterflies, for example, arrive, and around the spring monarch butterfly migration is in full swing, when they arrive in this region, and they are arriving in this region right now, the milkweeds that they find that they lay their eggs on are the milkweeds that are on the side of the road. In this region, most of the milkweeds that monarchs use are on the side of US 319. And so um, those linear distributions are supporting monarchs and every other insect that is there, as well as many other endangered species that bottleneck into that roadside with them. So what that means is that if all of the representatives of those species, all of those milkweeds and all of those other rare plants are there in that one little linear area on the side of the road, all it takes is one road widening, one road resurfacing, and the entirety of that species is eliminated from an entire region,
Mhm.
which is what would be the case if we did not remove them here today. And so, because there are statutes that exempt FDOT from having to mitigate for these species. They don't have to necessarily remove them. Um, it can result in a major loss for these species. And we've seen other places around the state where this has happened, and it continues to happen. A very large population was lost in Central Florida last week in the vicinity of US 301 and State Route 50. And so, the Florida Native Plant Society, the Florida Wildflower Foundation has partnered with FDOT and formed a working group And we're trying to come up with a strategy so that these losses don't happen anymore,
Yeah.
so that organizations and individuals can get out there and get on it before anything happens.
Yeah, and speaking of Native Plant Society, they put out a really robust, awesome report on the roads to ruin, the 3 toll roads that are proposed to be built through some of Florida's most fragile ecosystems. So they're a really valuable source of information on the what we stand to lose and why Florida wouldn't be the same without these native plant species. So, Scott, what can Floridians do at home to kind of help with these efforts and, apply citizen science in their own backyard?
So, if you're at home, don't feel like your land or your backyard or your back porch or your balcony is something that cannot contribute to the environmental quality, the ecological quality of the state of Florida. The vast majority of Florida is still in private ownership. And if all of us collectively work together to establish a lot of these species in pots or in our gardens, we could work to create these little eco corridors in our backyards that help to prevent the cases that we're seeing elsewhere in places like FDOT right-of-way. And so I strongly encourage everyone to work to install, purchase as many native plant species as they can that are suitable for their region of the state. And those plants, they provide nectar and pollen that a lot of our insects and our birds and our other wildlife evolved with. And so a lot of exotic species, they don't necessarily provide the same food. So purchase native plants from local nurseries and put the right plant for the right site. So that's what you can do at home. You can also work with your homeowners associations to modify rules regarding what you can do with your property so you can create an aesthetically pleasing and also functional urban habitat in your yard. And in addition to that, going forward and working with local government, working with your county commissioners, which your county commissioners can sign a resolution that they then hand over to FDOT that says we want to manage our plants, our rare plants on the side of the road, with a mowing management plan. Here's another clasping milkweed I just found. I'm kind of excited. This one's really big, so pretty stoked. So that's what you can do at home. That's what you can do at the county level. As far as state regulations are concerned, we need to email, we need to call, we need to work with our local and state politicians and our senators. We need to work with folks up in Tallahassee to maybe add some new language to the statutes that brings larger protections, maybe allocates funds so that agencies or partnering NGOs that work with these agencies can have the resources to get out here and get this stuff out of here, because this is a lot of work. This is a lot of planning. You need folks that know botany. You need folks that know ecology, but you also just need folks that are willing to lend a hand and put a shovel in the ground and do some real boots on the ground conservation.
Yeah, that's great advice, Scott. I will also say too, these roads aren't built in a day. Like you mentioned, it takes a long planning from the state to the local, county and city levels to build and expand roads. So I would say that getting involved in the process and getting involved in public comment and getting engaged earlier can save a lot of plants in the long run. Is that correct?
That is correct. whenever notices for a project are released, folks in local communities are usually notified by mail or by
Mhm.
email. The very moment that you see that there is a project, like a road widening project or a new road, that's when you should go ahead and you should reach out FDOT and ask them what sort of measures they're taking, what kind of environmental assessments do they intend to endeavor with on that site. And you should also reach out to your local organizations, like a local chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. You may not know yet, but maybe you do, and let them know this road's coming through. This road widening project is coming through. And if you let them
Mhm.
know, collectively, the the understanding and the expertise of these organizations, plus you the individual who sees it or heard about it, can begin the process of getting out there and looking at these sites. Don't think that because you're not trained as a scientist or as a biologist that you cannot contribute to this. The vast majority of people that reach out to me, they're out on some road in their neighborhood, in their city, in a rural location where we don't go. But they see something. There are eyes out there that let us know what's going on so we can go out there and work with them to mitigate for it.
That's a great point, Scott. We really are stronger as a collective and have kind of a collective duty to save the natural Florida that we love. Ooh, what is that?
That was Phlox.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, to get more connected with this issue, is there a specific email or way to reach you or organizations you work with that we can share with our audience today?
If you want to learn more about what we're working on right here on US 319 today, or if you want to learn more about native plants, if you want to learn more about rules and regulations, um, if it's specific to this project, you can go ahead and reach out to me by emailing me. First, if you want to, you can provide my email address if you want.
Great.
But as far as, I just wanted to show everybody where we've been working. So these are plants that have been removed. Carson, I believe you were working in this area on Monday. So
Uh-huh.
a huge effort to get these plants out of here along the bustling highway. Actually, we need to fill in these holes. So I would start with that, and I am honestly forgetting the exact email address for the Florida Native Plant and the Florida Wildflower Foundation. I'm so used to copying and pasting them, I forgot them. But if
That's
you
okay. We can find them.
go ahead and look up Florida Plant Society or Florida Wildflower Foundation, you'll find lots of contact information. You'll find lots of online resources. And you can also find some plans on there that help you, after you read them, to understand what exactly it is you can do, who you need to contact, and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott. You've just been a treasure trove of information, and it's been really awesome just to virtually get out on site here and see these really special species that we have in our state. Is there anything else you'd like to share with conservation voters?
I think that's all I have to say. I just want to go ahead and remind everyone that just because we have state parks, we have national parks, we have national preserves, it is my experience that I've met a lot of people that think that, okay, well, we've set aside land, and so everything is okay. And that's not necessarily the case, because we have many things that are not captured by those public lands. And so we have some things that are captured by public land, some things that are captured by private land. and other things that are captured, many things that are captured, for example, like FDOT right of way. And so,
Mhm.
if we're going to capture and conserve a lot of the species here in the state in perpetuity for the future, we're going to have to think outside of the box about what constitutes an ecosystem. And so that means, and I cannot stress enough, that roadsides, power line easements, and every single person's backyard or balcony is critical habitat that can be used for all of biota of the state of Florida for the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Carson.
Happy plant rescuing out there. It's a great cause.
Thanks, Carson. I found some more.
Awesome. What is that? Real quick before we
Okay.
go, what is that?
Well, here I didn't even find these are new. Here's another population of clasping milkweed right here. So
Awesome.
these are probably 50 to 60 years old. So they've been here a very long time, and
Wow.
there are more clasping milkweeds on the side of US 319 than there are anywhere else in the state. There are more individuals here than there are known collectively in the wild anywhere else statewide. So this is a large genetic resource for the species. They call it clasping milkweed because if you look at the leaves, they tend to be clasping like that. So that's where the species name Asclepias amplexicalis comes from, because it looks like two frogs that are clasping, which is actually what the term amplexus means. That's probably more than you wanted to know, but that's besides the point. So
That's
and
awesome.
here is some recruitment. So here is an actual baby clasping milkweed right here. So this goes to show that the mow zone is where these plants are persisting. And here's the edge. The very moment that you go inside the forest line, the forest edge, there's nothing. The plants are gone. They're not here, except for right here, where disturbance is maintained by mowers the way it was historically maintained by fire.
Wow. It just goes to show that there's just these awesome, really rare species like right before our eyes in places that you wouldn't expect them.
They're
So
usually
thanks
on
for
the
opening
side of
our
the
eyes
road.
to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very cool.
All right.
Very
Well,
cool.
I guess unless there's more questions, that's all I have to say today.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? I'll give you a couple seconds here to get your questions in. You can always check out Florida Native Plant Society, and did you say Florida Wildflower Association, right,
The
Scott?
Florida Wildflower Foundation.
Great, great. All right, we'll check those out and we'll share all those links if no one has any questions. Thanks for joining us today. It was so great to talk to you, Scott. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Talk to you later. Thanks, Carson.
Bye, conservation voters.